How would it go when God would directly rule over Israel and Israel maintained its organization as 12 loosely confederated autonomous tribes? That is the question that we can begin to see the answer to in the book of Judges. The book of Judges is so named because of the champion or the warlords that God would raise up in order to deliver his people from the enemies around them who would take advantage of them and oppress them. And they existed from the time after the days of Joshua until the day when Saul becomes king in Israel. This is the period of the Judges. The book of Judges covers the majority of that period, with the end of it coming in the book of 1 Samuel. This time period, if we, again, look at 1410 or so as the beginning of the conquest, goes from somewhere like 1375 to about 1080 BC. That's the kind of time frame we would have for it. Although there are many more years if you count up all the years of all the judges listed in the book of Judges, that's probably because there are judges simultaneously ruling over different parts of Israel at any given moment. Just because there is a judge over a part of Israel doesn't mean they're over all of Israel. And even in these narratives, we can see where there is either a northern or southeastern or eastern focus, where the judge is kind of very active in doing things and therefore may not be involved in issues in other places. It's not known as for one of the better times. It would be a great Hollywood script, perhaps, but it is a very difficult time for Israel, as we can see as we explore what is going on in the text. We don't know who wrote the book of Judges. It may be the same person who wrote the book of Joshua. We have confidence that it is from some historical prophet who is writing out the story of God's people as God would have it to be written out. It might well be written just before the time of David, because Jerusalem remains in the hands of the Jebusites at different parts in the text. So Judges begins with this recapitulation of some of the stuff at the end of Joshua, that the land that still needed to be conquered, right? There's a lot of it's conquered, there's some that's unconquered. We see Caleb conquering Hebron, and Othniel becomes his son-in-law when he captures Kiriath Sefer. We see how Judah and Simeon are doing decently at conquering their land, but Benjamin doesn't take Jerusalem. Manasseh, Ephraim, Asher, and Naphtali don't take all the cities. And so God's angel delivers a message. Remember, there was this impetus. There would be more conquest. That's what he told Joshua. But now he says, well, I'm not going to remove all the people. You've not been faithful in getting rid of all these people. They're going to remain in the land for you and will be a snare to you. Joshua is buried. And we then are given, in the end of chapter 2, this kind of description, a theological description of what's going on. That the people would abandon God, they would serve other gods, and God would get angry with them, and they would be handed over to an oppressor for a while. They would cry out to Yahweh because of their oppression. Yahweh would take pity on them and raise up a judge. And the judge would deliver Israel from that particular oppressor, and then the people would start serving the gods of the nations again, and it would all happen again. And this is not a virtuous cycle at all. In fact, it became worse. As we're going to see, the later judges are men of less integrity than those who had come before, and the consequences and behaviors going on are much more dire. This is not a great period of time. But through it all, God has sworn he's not going to dispossess any more of the nations around them. Israel is going to have to deal with the people who are now all around them. In chapter 3, we meet Othniel, Ehud, and Shamgar. The first judge is listed. Othniel, Caleb's son-in-law, relieves Israel from the oppression of Cushan-Rishathaim of Mesopotamia. We have the story of Eglon, king of Moab, oppressing Israel. And Ehud rises up, a left-handed man, and he is able to, with his trickery, kill Eglon, summons out the people of Israel, and there's a great slaughter of Moabites. Moab is subdued. Shamgar kills 600 Philistines with an ox goad. In chapters 4 and 5, we have Deborah and Barak. The Israelites are handed over to the Canaanite king who has iron chariots. We're now definitely in the Iron Age. And Sisera is his army commander. Deborah has been a prophetess and a judge over Israel in the northern areas. She summons Barak to fight against the Canaanites. Barak will fight, but only if Deborah is with him. Because of this, it is said that they will gain victory, but the glory is going to go to a woman. We are invited to meet Heber and Jael, who are Kenites, and they are a part of what used to be a southern desert tribe that's come up, and at least some of their members are now inhabiting the land of Israel. And there's war between Sisera and Barak gets the victory. Sisera's forces are routed. Sisera flees to the tent of Jael because they have a treaty agreement. And there she induces him to take rest. She grabs a tent peg and hammers a tent peg through his head. And thus is the end of Sisera, and the glory came to the woman. But the Canaanites were defeated, and Barak was able to rout the Canaanite forces and provide relief to Israel. Chapter 5 is the Song of Deborah, which is universally confessed as a very old song, ancient song, probably an original composition from the time. And it glorifies what was done by Deborah, by Barak, by Jael, and taunts at the end the family of Sisera, vainly expecting him to come home with all of these riches that he would have accumulated from success in battle, and yet he lay dead in a tent from a woman hammering him with a tent peg. Gideon is the subject of chapter 6 through 8. This is where there's Midianite and people from the east who are oppressing the Israelites. Israel cries out, and it's Gideon who is called, and there will be many signs. Gideon will constantly need signs from God that he's doing what God wants him to do. Gideon is called to destroy an altar of Baal, and he does so and honors Yahweh with his own altar. People want to kill him for doing that to Baal's altar, kind of an inverse of what Israel should be like from Deuteronomy 13. But his father said, well, let Baal contend with him, and that's how Gideon gets the name Jerubbaal. Let Baal contend. Gideon goes to war. He's got too many soldiers. So from 32,000, his first dropped down to 22,000. 20,000 leaving 10,000. 10,000 are too many, down to 300 at the end. And they do a night attack on the camp of Midian. The Midianites flee. Ephraimites come out and slaughter a lot of the Midianites, including their princes. Gideon will continue to pursue. He will placate Ephraim with Ephraim's contention. That's important for what will happen later. Gideon will ultimately overcome the kings of Midian and kill them, and will rebuke those cities that did not provide him material aid in the process. They want Gideon to become a king. He refuses, but he does take the gold from the Midianite earrings and makes a golden ephod, a garment, a religious garment for with it, and was an inducement to sin for Israel. He's got 70 sons, and he dies in good old age, but he's also got an extra son from a concubine, from another woman named Abimelech, who will rise up and in a conspiracy slaughter all but one of the sons of Gideon. And in chapter 9, we see that Abimelech is made king in Shechem. He's the first king we see in Israel. We don't know how far his range was, but it was at least in that area of Shechem. The remaining son of Gideon, Jotham, speaks about the parable of the thorn bush and invokes a curse on Shechem and on Abimelech. Through the machinations that go on, Abimelech will end up destroying Shechem, in fact, salting the ground, completely razing the town to the ground. And later on, Abimelech himself will be killed because a woman dropped a millstone on his head at a different siege. And so that will be the end of Abimelech and the end of the ostensible first king of Israel. In chapter 10, we learn about Tola and Yair, additional judges. We don't know a whole lot about them. Israel sins, and now we're going to be handed over to the Ammonites for 18 years. And when Israel cries out, God says, well, go ask the gods you've been serving if they'll take care of you. But they continue to protest. They put away those other gods, and God will now work to save Israel, and he does so through Jephthah. Jephthah is an illegitimate child. He's cast out from his family there in Gilead, and he becomes essentially a gang leader. All kinds of worthless fellows associate around him. And so he's got a posse. He's got a gang. And the elders of Gilead are desperate, and they make him their leader. And he kind of has this written contention where the Ammonites say that they should be the rulers over the land, and he points out that his ancestors a few hundred years ago destroyed Sihon and Og, and that's why they're in that land. Jephthah makes an unfortunate vow that whatever comes out from his house, he will offer as a burnt offering, assuming clearly one of his animals would come out. Well, he goes to war, fights, gets the victory, comes home. His daughter is the first thing that meets him. in when he comes back from war. And he keeps that vow. They limit her virginity, and the text does say that he offered her as a burnt offering. And that it is, you cannot get around the wording of the text, as offensive as it is for modern sensibilities. Ephraim is again discontented with Jephthah like they were with Gideon, but where Gideon was able to placate them, Jephthah does not, or Jephthah doesn't even care to. There's war now between the Gileadites and the Ephraimites, and the Gileadites get the better of the Ephraimites. In fact, and to the point where all the Ephraimites are trying to flee, they require them to say the word shibboleth, which apparently the Ephraimites in their dialect don't have the sh. They said sibboleth, and anybody who said sibboleth, they would kill, which leads to 42,000 Ephraimites killed because of this particular situation. So we're seeing that devolution in real time. And we're also told in chapter 12 that Ibzan, Elon, Abdon also are judges of Israel. Not much is said about them. Then we get, of course, to Samson, who is the star character from chapters 13 through 16. Samson's parents are Manoah and his wife. They are childless. They are the most virtuous people, the best people you're going to see in the book of Judges. And an angel visits them to say they're going to have a son. He's going to be a Nazarite from birth. That he's not going to should not have his hair cut. He should not, be anywhere near wine, things of that nature. They provide an offering. The angel departs in the offering, so they recognize they've been visited by God. The context, of course, is the Philistines have come to town. The Philistines have come in by this point. They are probably the remnant of the sea peoples who had attacked Egypt and was defeated by the Egyptians, but perhaps only barely, and had maybe ravaged pretty much all the other Bronze Age civilizations and had brought those to an end, brought those to heel. And now they have come into the southwestern area of the Levant and have taken over the land, dispossessed its people, and will now be the dominant force until David finally knocks them out. So throughout the time of Samson and Eli and Samuel, into the beginning of David's reign, the Philistines are this mighty force oppressing and exploiting the people of God. It's only with David that they are finally overcome and will no longer be a difficulty for God's people. So Samson's born, the Spirit of Yahweh is in him, and the chapters 14 and 15 and 16 are all about the various situations that God establishes as in contentions with the Philistines, where Samson will use his brute strength to slaughter many of them. And eventually, though, he's caught in with his Philistine wife Delilah, and he eventually tells her the source of his great strength. They cut his hair, the Philistines are upon him, and he's taken, he's blinded. They try to get glory over him. They have this whole feast in a palace, and yet Samson's hair had grown back. He prays to God to be remembered one more time. He knocks the pillars out, crushing the whole house down, and it's said that in his death he killed more Philistines than he ever had at any point in his life. And so note well, though, that the Philistines are still a problem. He's the first judge that isn't able to overcome the problem, even though he inflicted great losses upon them. The rest of the book of Judges are these appendices. We don't know exactly where they fit. They probably fit more later than earlier in the Judges context, and they're framed by the statement that this is the time when there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So the first appendix is about this guy Micah, and he took silver from his mom and gave it back, and she was so happy she said, go make a silver statue of Yahweh out of it. And so they make a silver statue of Yahweh out of it. He makes a shrine. He has household gods there. He puts his son in as priest. This is when there's no king in Israel, right? And so he thinks that everything's going to go well from him. There's a Levite who comes by and he says, hey, why don't you be my personal priest? I got all this stuff. We can have a good living. And he assents. And so now Micah thinks God's going to bless me because I have a Levite in my house for this statue that I've made, and thinks everything's going to go well from him. The Danites are seeking a homeland because the allotment God gave them, they're not able to do anything with because the Philistines are there now. And so spies have been sent out. They come by and they stay with Micah, and they learn about Micah's priest. They talk to that priest. They see all the situation there. They eventually see that there's Laish up there by Sidon, way to the north. Not very well. Sidon's nowhere near it. It's a very easy target. And so they come back, and as they're going through the whole army of Dan, they stop at Micah's house. They tell the priest, hey, why be a priest of one Israelite when you can be a priest of a whole tribe, right? And so he comes, takes everything with him, including that statue of Yahweh, and just leaves with the people. Micah's been wrong, so Micah tries to go out with his little people, but he doesn't have as many people as the Danites do. And he accuses the Danites of their theft, and the Danites just kind of strike, so like, there's more of us than there are of you. might makes right here. And so Micah now lost everything. And there's not a whole lot Micah can do about it. And so, yep, the Danites go up there. They destroy Laish, make it into the city of Dan. They install that that silver statue there. And they're told the priest is Jonathan, the descendant of Moses. And his descendants will be the priest at that temple, for that statue, in Dan for many generations afterward. And if you thought that appendice was bad, then what about the story in the second appendix from chapters 19 through 21, where a Levite of Ephraim had lost his concubine, went to get her back, stayed too long at dad's house, or father-in-law's house, starts heading out, won't stop in Jerusalem because it's a Jebusite town. Will go to Gibeah of Benjamin, which is an Israelite town. Was going to sleep in the square, is invited to stay in the house of an older man from Ephraim. Knock on the door. The Gibeonites want to know the guest. They want to violate the guest, kind of like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he gives the concubine instead. They rape the concubine to death. He then takes the concubine, cuts her into pieces, sends all of Israel. All Israel gathers against Benjamin. The Benjaminites rally around the Gibeonites even though they've done bad things. The Gibeonites. The first 2 days, 40,000 of the Israelites are killed. There's weeping before God. But on the third day, 25,000 Benjaminites die because they're given in the hand of Israel. Their cities are destroyed, leaving only 600 men of Benjamin. Then Israel realized, oh man, we just basically exterminated one of our tribes. And they had all, said, we're not going to let any of our daughters marry Benjaminites. And so they swore that. So they found there was a city, Jabesh Gilead, that had not sent any soldiers or did not participate in this. And so they went and destroyed that city and killed everybody except for the virgin. Again, that's a city in Israel. Took their virgins, and well, that was 400 virgin women given. There's still 200 left. There's a festival in Shiloh where they're encouraged to lie in wait, and during the dances, they come and grab a girl, and, ostensibly there's the pretense of, hey, don't take her, and they take her off as wives for the Benjaminites to technically get around the vow because they were not given in marriage. They were taken and then brought into marriage. And then, again, the author of Judges wants you to know that there was no king in Israel, that everyone did what is right in their own eyes. So we look at the book of Judges. We can see this very difficult period in Israelite history. We can understand why a central administration ended up proving necessary, because you have these ruinous civil war moments where tens of thousands of Ephraimites and tens of thousands of Benjaminites, and in the meantime, their combatants also lose many soldiers. Many of them are dying from intra warfare within the tribes, let alone dealing with all the oppressors around them, and especially with that persistent Philistine threat. These tribal associations, having a judge rise up, is insufficient to really deal with what the Philistines are doing and the oppression of the Philistines. At the same time, they're supposed to honor God as their king and to trust that God would give them victory even over these difficult enemies that they have. And so you've got that tension throughout, that they should honor God as a ruler, but as these 12 autonomous tribes, it's not working. And it was only getting progressively worse as time went on. And so we can see from Judges what happens when everybody does what is right in their own eyes, and how might will make right, how people will end up thinking that very warped, perverse things are the ways that you do things, and it doesn't go well for them or it doesn't go well for anybody. It's something we can really learn from that. And that's why it's good for us to learn from the book of Judges, to seek after God, to do what is right in His eyes, and to be ruled over, in fact, by Him. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts about the book of Judges, which again will make a lot of great Hollywood movies, don't know why they haven't gone on in that yet, please let us know in the comments. You can also subscribe to us, share the message if you find it beneficial. I'm Ethan, we're at the Venice Church of Christ. We are a non-denominational church in Los Angeles that's trying to glorify God and to serve one another and to serve you. If there's any way we can be of service, let us know. We'd love to help you in any way we can, with a Bible study, with prayer. Just like to meet with us, let us know. Reach out to us at VeniceChurchOfChrist.org. You can find us on social media at Venice Church or Venice Church of Christ. We again thank you. May the Lord bless and keep you until we're able to meet again.